Revelation 20 is the foundational chapter for the dispensationalist on the millennial issue. And they maintain that the word thousand is used there. I believe they say it's used 6 times, and therefore it must be literal because it's used 6 times. Well, I would maintain that it's used 6 times, and it probably means the same thing all 6 times, whether it's symbolic or literal. So that really isn't a good argument. It's interesting that when you get to this generation is used like 20 times, and 19 of those times it refers to the generation of Jesus is speaking, but one time it means something different. And so here we find the dispensationalists kind of changing their literal method when they come to a passage that now seems to fit their system. The question is, does Revelation chapter 20 say what the dispensationalists need it to say? Revelation 20 doesn't say anything about a rebuilt temple, doesn't say anything about Jesus reigning on the earth during that 1,000-year period. Nothing is said about animal sacrifices. All the elements that are necessary for the dispensational system to work are not found in the very passage that they use to support their position. The use of the number 1,000 in Revelation chapter 20 is interesting because of the way 1,000 is used elsewhere in Scripture. 1 day in the court of the Lord is better than 1,000 days anywhere else. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. God is faithful to His people for 1,000 generations. Well, what about 1,001 generations? Does God's faithfulness stop after just the 1,000th generation? Or does God own the cattle on 1,001st hill? Well, of course, God owns the cattle on all the hills, and God is faithful to all the generations through all time. And the same thing in Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20, and using that word 1,000, is telling us of the greatness and the magnitude of this reign of Christ. And by the way, that reign of Christ is in heaven, because the ones who reign with Him are the ones who were beheaded. Therefore, they are dead, and they reign with Christ for 1,000 years. Now, this reign that takes place in heaven, I believe, is a directive for where the book, in fact, takes place. Because very early on in Revelation chapter 4, John is taken up into heaven. He sees this as a heavenly vision. And so we would expect that this 1,000-year reign of Christ with the departed souls would take place in heaven, where the rest of the book of Revelation is taking place in this visionary scene that John is given.